controversy is here in the MLS because apparently the MLS is rigged. I don't know if you missed the news, you missed the bulletin. It's come out, it's confirmed that the entirety of MLS is rigged for ratings. And I'm going to be honest, in most leagues, that has very little credence or precedence. It's not super possible. In MLS, it is. Because MLS is capable of rigging certain things just logistically, because the way MLS works is every single player is owned by the league, every single team is owned by the league, and they are kind of given to the teams. The players are given to the teams, but they're all technically under contract with MLS, right? And if you buy a team in MLS, you're buying a piece of the league. You don't actually buy the specific team. You don't own the specific team. You can't take that team and leave the league or whatever the hell Fenerbahce was trying to do in Turkey. It's very centralized. And a part of that, particularly in the old history of MLS, is that if a player wanted to sign for MLS, the league itself could kind of determine where they wanted that player to go, because it was the league that was involved in that kind of negotiation and that process. But we have now resurfaced through recent drama that the fact that MLS is flagrantly, belligerently rigged. And what brought that to the surface was a rather innocuous match between Vancouver and St. Louis. I realize you might not have even known these teams existed if you're not like an avid MLS follower or enjoyer or avid football person in general, but it was a good match, right? Vancouver went behind on two separate occasions against St. Louis, 1-0 and 2-1, scored the equalizer in the 79th minute, and then in front of the home fans got a penalty, which they were able to then give to their new massive signing, the legend Thomas Muller, right, who stepped up and scored his first goal for Vancouver Whitecaps in a 104th minute penalty to deliver all 3 points to the Great White North in Vancouver. It was a well-taken penalty. Give him a lot of credit. He hit him with a little hezzy, put that bad boy top shelf, and then, got a little celebration off in front of the fans and everything. He was having a good time. It was a feel-good story. Right, it's the type of story that Major League Soccer was able to tweet about, right? Thomas Muller's first goal at the death, right? Tom Bogert, who's basically the Fabrizio Romano of MLS, tweeting, yeah, look at that. 14th minute of stoppage time. Thomas Muller scores the winning goal. Like, it's a nice positive news story. And the allegation here, though, is that it is rigged. That this penalty was basically called in by the MLS headquarters because they wanted to create a nice storyline for Thomas Muller's introduction into MLS to get the good PR or whatever. Which, to be perfectly honest, I don't know if that theory holds water on the drop. Because are you really going to risk what it takes to rig results or to try and manufacture results just for a little bump in your social media analytics? That doesn't necessarily track for me. But why is this accusation flying around? Well, the next tweet, in reply to the first one from old Tom Bogert here, is controversial foul that gave Vancouver the penalty. No call in real time, then VAR recommended a check. Referee went to the monitor and gave a penalty. Now, obviously, you know how I do. I'm going to show you this, and then you're going to be able to react to it. I'm going to show you what's going on, then you are able to decide for yourself whether this was a justified call or not. All right, here we go. 3, 2. Oh, boy. Oh, brother. Oh, heavens to Betsy. By every appearance, right, and especially the first time I watched the 8 seconds that you just watched, he just trips over himself in the box. I mean, by every appearance, he's just running in the box and then just falls over. Right? In which case, like, if you were watching this in real time, particularly the fact that the referee didn't see anything, and that if you're not really paying attention, this play is completely innocuous. Right? This is not the sort of play where you've got a ton of players running around going, hey, hey! You're trying to get the ref's attention. Right? It is not the sort of play that is going to cause some sort of long stoppage in play because everybody is crowding around the referee. But what ends up happening is the person in the VAR booth calls it down. The referee comes over, of course, has to agree with the call, and then makes the call. But you know what? I kind of hate myself around this because then I watched it again. Right? The first time I watched it, I go, oh, it's a terrible call. That's brutal. Maybe it is all rigged. Put my tinfoil hat on. right? I mean, even down to the point that the ball is literally like running away from the box, right? This is not an immediate goal threat type play. Even if a foul had been committed, it's like against the spirit of the game. It just makes you feel all dirty inside. But when you watch it again, and you watch it again, and then you watch it again, you start to find maybe the one reason that I don't believe MLS is rigged, basically, from watching this. Because all you need, right, in order to prove that there was at least some thought process here beside, let's give Thomas Muller a magic moment, right? You need to prove that there is a legitimate reason for that VAR person to have called down to the field in the first place. And I think I have it. You might remember a play that kind of looked like this. David Luiz in the Premier League. For some reason, that's the one I remember, where you kind of strafe the back of the attacker's legs. Okay. Before I dive too far into this explanation, I do want to show like the reaction to this. Every single MLS fan knows the absolute Bush League call that orchestrated his ability to score this. A no call on the field. VAR calls for a down player, trips over himself in stride in the box. Sasha Kleshton, who is an analyst for MLS, not enough clear and obvious evidence that this should have been called a penalty. Massive decision in the race for the Supporters' Shield. Right? All this kind of is a part of the reaction to this highlight. Okay, and there were a lot more tweets and a lot more responses and a lot of just the whole weekend I was seeing it on various social medias like, well, we know the league's rigged now anyways, right? And I was in that boat for a long time. But as I held off making the video, we're going to get to what I was talking about, the David Luiz type foul, which is where you go across the back of the legs of the attacker, intentional or otherwise, and in the normal process of them running, you trip them up. And that is what I believe the VAR person saw. But that's all we need. All we need to prove, not prove that it's not rigged, but all we need to come up with like something, some reason that this call was made. I believe that's it. Because if I'm going to put this in half speed here, while he's running, the defender is going to come across the back of his legs. And as this foot goes back, right, it's going back in a normal spot. That's just not how you trip over yourself. When you trip, you like accidentally step on your foot. Your legs get crossed over in the front. You don't bring your leg back and then all of a sudden kick yourself in the back of the calf the way that he's kicking himself in the back of the calf here. Right? That means that it is likely that knee right there hit his ankle. The issue I have with this is that I've not been able to find any other angle of this play at all. VAR might have had it. And if they had it, and it conclusively proves that the defender, this dude, touched this dude, I think it's a penalty. And I hate that. I hate myself for thinking that. But right now, all I'm doing is extrapolating, right? I'm reaching into the bag of maybes, and I'm pulling out a definitely. I don't think referees should do that, especially in these video review situations. If we can't find conclusive proof that this guy touched this guy. Conclusive proof is not being, it looks like he touched him. Like the way this guy is reacting, it would make sense if he had, his knee had hit his heel. That's not proof. This shouldn't be a penalty. So my stance on this is it's still a shit call. But it is not the league is rigged, total Bush League call. I think it's we think this is what happened, so we're going to make this call. And if you can't prove it, if you only think that's what happened, you can't call it in the 103rd minute of the game. Like, this is just a pure match-deciding decision. It's either a draw or a win for Vancouver on this call. And whether Muller can score the penalty, which, let's be honest, you trust him. I don't think he's really feeling the pressure in MLS here. But I hate the fact that I actually see what the VAR official is seeing in this play. And I don't believe MLS is rigged based off this alone. In the spirit of the game even, this is still kind of a penalty, right? It feels nasty, like for all the reasons that I said. It's not a super threatening play. The ball's going away. It's not, it doesn't feel like it should be a penalty. But it's also the same as when defenders, let's say they block a cross like this, right? And it hits their arm. That sort of situation. And the reason you have to call that a penalty, even if the defender doesn't have the time to get his arm out of the way, is if you don't call those penalties, every defender is going to be trained to come out like this because a point blank cross is not going to count as a handball, and they'll be able to make themselves bigger to try and stop the cross. That's what I would teach defenders to do if they weren't going to get called for a penalty for that. And the reason that you have to call this a penalty is if you don't call this, intentional or otherwise, defenders will be trained and become experts at strafing the back of an attacker's legs. Kind of jump, what this guy did, I don't believe he did it intentionally watching the highlight, but it's essentially like jumping across the back of the attacker's legs here. Oh, I had the audio on. I was wondering what the hell that was. You're just kind of stepping across the back of the attacker's legs here, and you can do that and try and clip the attacker's legs. And as much as this looks like some sort of Daffy Duck trip and fall, right? That is a legitimate trip. Like, there is no way in this instance, if he actually is if the defender has made contact with his heel here, there's basically no way that this guy could stay up. As silly, as floppy as this fall looks, there's no way for him to stay on his feet. My most important, my biggest takeaway, though, is that I really hate where I've landed on this. Because I want to be in this camp where it's rigged and this call is terrible, because it looks terrible the first time you see it. But maybe that's the biggest argument against something like VAR, is if it's not, big enough and obvious enough for the referee to have seen it initially, do we really need to go back and kind of review this sort of thing to decide entire matches? But I personally don't even want to open that can of worms because I don't know the answer